Good morning.
Yeah, Friday morning. And
November 5th already.
We're here. Anybody else is, but we will get started.
Special guest, River Abatelli.
Yeah. Definitely has, oh, wow, you can really rip up a Kleenex. That is for sure. You are really
How exciting
Wow.
it is.
Oh my gosh. Remember those days when that's all it took?
Kleenex? Who needs toys?
Destroy a Kleenex?
Can you say hi to everybody?
Okay, so it looks like we're live streamed as well. So welcome everyone.
Good morning.
I'm Rebecca Mason of Wondrous Roots here in Keene, New Hampshire. I'm a holistic health practitioner and herbalist, nutritionist, and I see people in private consultation for all kinds of situations of health and to maintain healthy well-being. And Dr. Tisa Abatelli, I'll let you introduce yourself. Oh, I can't hear you now.
There we go. There we go. Good morning, everyone. Dr. Tisa Abatelli with Cheshire Wellness Center. Special guest right here, my son, River Abatelli. Having a great time with a Kleenex at the moment and bones. So Cheshire Wellness Center, we are a Light Force chiropractic office that uses evidence-based transformative chiropractic care to help people establish ease in their spine rather than tension, and to let all of our stressors go from the body so that we can function better, feel better, and have better quality of life. So, and I would say it helps us be more awake, aware, and alive, and this little guy proves it all the way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he's like just so robust. So I love his presence. He's got just an amazing human presence. And yes, I said that about you, River. I did. So if you're tuning in, you can be involved here on our Zoom meeting. Also, we're live streaming from the Proactive Health Collective, the Proactive Health Collective of Keene. Facebook page. And you'll be able to enter questions or into the chat here, or you can go back and we'll make these available later for viewing. But Tisa and I are here together. We normally have Dr. Tisa or Matt Abatelli, who are the network chiropractor practitioners here at Cheshire Wellness, and Dr. Jean Clarkin of Monad Natural Health, who is also a chiropractor, but also practices this nutritional based, what do they call that? It's kinesiology, but it's
nutritional release therapy.
Yes, nutritional release therapy. And then of course, Allison Millar, acupuncturist here in Keene at Basic Balance here in Keene. And Dr. Jean and Allison are away today, and Tisa and Dr. Matt have River. So usually one is on and one is off. So Tisa and I thought it would be a cool idea to talk about the whole, going back to pregnancy and delivery and postpartum, and talk about some of those issues that really pertain to the whole human race. And yeah, so since you have a much more vivid memory of all of that, I'm gonna let you start out.
Yeah, it's definitely obviously something in the forefront of my mind, right? Because we're 8 months postpartum, almost 8 months. That'll be next week, 8 months, little guy. And I have friends who have children around my age, and then I've seen a lot of pregnant women come into our practice and then unfortunately not start care, just on the pretenses of, oh, if I don't get adjusted and it doesn't go away immediately, then this doesn't work. And it's under like false pretenses, because prenatal care is so, so important for the health of these guys. Like what we do and the choices we make way before even conception is going to impact the health and well-being of our little ones. And so I know, Rebecca, you helped me tremendously, and also Dr. Jean prior to getting pregnant, cleaning out my system and helping my body just function at a higher level internally, as well as receiving chiropractic care during that journey and continuing. Drop the bones. And so I have noticed a big difference. Postpartum care or postpartum is a challenge for anybody, and you're going to heal at your rate. You know, some people are back at it in 6 weeks. Some people are back at it in 6 months. Sometimes it takes up to a year to feel, you know, normal again. And I'll tell you, I'm still on the recovery train. I can finally run again. Like body wise, my hips were just, you know, they had taken a toll. And even though my labor and delivery was only 8 hours, it's still trauma to the system. And so it took me a while to actually heal. And I'm still in process. So I get checked every week and just got off the table, and he does too. And it varies for everybody. I just think the importance of not only nutritional preemptive care for our body, and then obviously post as well. But keeping the body aligned and the spine aligned is going to help you feel and function better than probably normal if you don't do anything about it. And I know, Becky, you recommended that Let's Have Healthy Children by Adele Davis. Like, what a gift of a book. And it's like, if you're experiencing these problems, take this supplement and make sure you're getting this vitamin, you're getting this mineral into your system. And I tell you, I read that, and you should see the book. I underlined things, I went back, I highlighted it. I was just making sure, because I didn't want, you know, the varicose veins. I didn't want, you know, inflammation. I didn't want morning sickness, you know, so I made sure that my diet was nutrient dense.
And you also wanted a healthy baby.
Well,
and that's huge. And I could kind of go off on that and talk a little bit about some of the nutrients that are super important during preconception and during pregnancy that really go missing for a lot of people. And Adele Davis, again, for people who might not know about this, but her book, Let's Have Healthy Children, she was a biochemist. She was a nutritionist. She worked for ranchers. And she saw that ranchers took so much more care about their pregnant cattle, because that was their livelihood. And if they were giving birth to sickly offspring, that wasn't gonna pay. And so they were super careful. She's like, compare how your average rancher feeds their pregnant cattle compared to the average human pregnant woman. And so some of the big things that I see go missing right now are vitamin D. Okay, super important. And people will warn you if you're pregnant, don't get too much vitamin D, don't get too much vitamin A. And I want to talk to that for a moment. The D and the A, it needs to come from fish liver oil. Not toxic. Now, you don't need to take 5,000 international units of vitamin D3, but I took 2,400 daily. My daughter was super healthy when she was born, and her genetics, I'll get into that later, but I mean, she was totally healthy. I took 25,000 international units of vitamin A from fish liver oil. Plus, I ate liver every day with very high in A and things like that. So when we're talking about toxicity of vitamin A in supplements for pregnant women, we're talking about retinol, we're talking about retinol palmitate, we're talking about synthetic forms of vitamin A, not from fish liver oil. So you don't have to go as high as 25,000 international units if that bothers you, but definitely 10,000 from fish liver oil, because your multivitamin for a pregnant woman is not going to have hardly any vitamin A in there, because everybody's been made scared about that. Another big deficit is iodine. So Adele Davis, you know, I was taking all these kelp tablets, I don't know, like, you know, for my iodine at that point in time, but iodine is super important. We're all iodine deficient, if not supplementing, and iodine deficiency leads to a very weak brain. It's actually severe iodine deficiency leads to what we call cretinism in babies who are born. And we have a huge problem there. So you definitely want a good multivitamin. Like I like to recommend the Thorne prenatal because it has the right form of folate, not folic acid, but methylfolate that you know you can use. And that's critical for preventing neural tube defects, for preventing early miscarriage, good form of vitamin B12, folic acid, a lot of women cannot use, and then a good all around other things in there. But if you don't supplement when you're pregnant, you're going to have a very hard time getting all the nutrients you need. And that's largely due to, our soil deficiencies, just so many more things to mention, but magnesium and things like that. So if you have proper vitamin D and calcium in pregnancy, your child's bones are going to be formed properly. So they're going to not need braces, right? Because why do people need braces? They need braces because the teeth are crowded. Why? Because when they were in the womb and they were developing, there was not enough vitamin D and calcium to form the bones properly. So really, every single healthy child should be beautiful, should not have a pinched face, should not have crowded teeth when the teeth start to come in. So when you see that, I can think back when I was in elementary school, and I can remember some of my friends who, as I look back, had these pinched faces and these kind of smallish kinds of things. And this just shows that they did not have proper nutrition. And proper nutrition, right, Dr. Tisa, does not start the day that baby is born. It starts way before. It starts
Way before
conception.
before conception. Yep. Yeah, I think that's super critical. And, iodine is, I think, underrated for a lot of reasons. And I know that most, especially women who experience breast cancer get iodine supplementation hardcore because it's so good for the system. Reading that book, he's standing. B6 was really important. Vitamin E was really important. Selenium was really important.
Sure.
And of course, I 100% vitamin D across the board, no matter whether you're pregnant or not, is just the ultimate vitamin. And then you have A, of course. And I know they do tend to scare you about taking too much. And
well, you have to have the right forms. The right forms.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
If you take it, what is it? Just D2 is not really going to do it. It needs to be D3.
Most people
D2.
aren't getting that, but I would really say vitamin D and vitamin A from fish liver oil. Just look, we have on the shelf, we have vitamin A, and it's from fish liver oil. It's 10,000 international units. I think if a pregnant woman adds that to her regimen, that's going to be fine. But again, I took 25,000. People thought my daughter was going to be a monster because of all of these things I was taking. But I was very careful and did all my research, and that was absolutely opposite was the case. So this is what we miss, right? Tisa, this is the thing. People miss the most fundamental things, and then we go for these grand solutions to problems when what we're trying to do now is make up for what wasn't done.
Right.
I tell people when you have the most control over your child when it's in your womb, because it can't tell you it doesn't like the taste of this or that, and it doesn't want to eat this or that. It can't argue with you, right? So you have the most control, but that's also where the constitution of that person is formed. If you give birth to a child with a strong constitution, you cannot change the constitution. Even if nutrition afterwards is not optimal, you will not change the constitution. Constitution is like your bank account is really high. And, so they can go through periods like my daughter did, fast food and Domino's and all this kind of stuff, dance studio and running out and getting cinnamon sticks and, whatever. You go through that. but you've got this bank account that's like this. So you have some deficits, but it's not a big deal. Now you have a child who is not nourished in the womb and ideally pre-conception, and you give birth to a child with an inherently poor constitution. And if you could get everything right nutritionally after that child is born, if you could get everything right nutritionally after that child is born, you will never change the poor constitution. You can make a better situation of a bad situation, but please be responsible in your pregnancy, because it will make your life so much better. It will make your child's life so much healthier. And you won't be running to the pediatrician with an allergy, with a this, with a that. You won't be going to the dentist all the time. You will be enjoying what is really a wholesome, healthy life as nature intends it.
Yeah. And, and that's what we're learning now. I took River to the pediatrician and wasn't a huge fan. And, I haven't really found a pediatrician. And we were just asking, like, what is the protocol and the time frame that you want to see him? And they were like, well, it's really just based on the vaccine schedule. And we're like, well, we're not doing vaccines right now for him, because why at the moment? And again, I'm not an anti-vaxxer, I'm just an anti-early vaxxer. And they're like, well, then just come, every couple months, or every, 3 months, every 6 months. We haven't been back. I wasn't really impressed. And so it really bugged us that that's how they base the health of a child, or the current, medical route.
Yeah.
Does. Hold on one second. We got to transfer. Say goodbye. Say goodbye, everybody.
Bye, River. There he goes, down the river.
Down the river we go. All right, cool. And so
I'd like to talk to that a little bit.
Yeah, we haven't really followed up, just because that didn't impress me. Like, it wasn't about the health of the child. It was about
Right.
what we were putting in him. And I was like, well, so what if we're not, too concerned about that? And the guy was like, well, then you can come, when there's something wrong. And, and I'm very aware of that. And I'm not that kind of doctor to where I know everything if something were to be wrong. I'm not 100% like, what is this related to? I do trust that his body can clear it out with effortlessness. And so we actually haven't been back. We did, I believe it was a 4-month or maybe 5-month checkup. And he's like, well, the next set of vaccines are in 2 months. It's like 4, 6, 9, 12, something like that. And
That's really what well baby care is about. And so what I'd like to talk to a little bit is, this is, I know we've talked about this before, but probably many times. And I'm telling you right now, I am not against excellent mainstream medicine. If you have a tumor and it needs to be biopsied, you don't want to see me, and you don't want to see Dr. Tisa. You want to have an expert who does that. If you need brain surgery, that's what you need. And we need people like this. But when we talk about normal things in life, such as getting pregnant, what is the first thing we do? We see a doctor. Now, doctors deal with medicine. They deal with medicine, surgery, and devices. That's what the medical toolkit is. So when you see a doctor, so really, is pregnancy about medicine? Not really. I mean, I think it's great when you go in and you find out, you can hear the heartbeat, or even get an ultrasound or whatever, and you can see that. I think that's lovely. But then the next thing is, while you're being walked through all of those appointments, you're also now, pick out your pediatrician, because the minute the baby's born, that's a medical thing. But it's not a medical thing, right? It's not a medical thing. It's a health thing. And so you can use medicine in your child's care, and you can use other things such as chiropractic and nutrition and all of these things. And you can kind of pick and choose what you want from this, what you want from that, and you can put together your own grocery cart when it comes to taking care of your child. It is very true that the well baby visits are about the vaccines, and nobody can deny that. The industry can't even deny it. It's the same thing about your animals when you take them to the vets, because that's how they make their bread and butter. This is what pays. And so I think it's great to have a doctor in the wings in case something happens. He's running a high fever. You have no idea what's going on. You need to see a doctor. You want to have a doctor. I think it's good that your pediatrician is like, fine, you know, just use us when you need us, and don't worry about, we're not going to like fire you because you're not on our schedule. I think that's good too. But human life is not about medicine. Medicine has a role, and
Necessary when necessary.
Yeah, and put it in proper perspective, and it's vital and it's important. But yeah.
Well, it's interesting. The gentleman that we did see, he himself was not that healthy. He had like conjunctivitis, and he had skin scabs and all this stuff. And he like put soap in his hands, laid it on there, and then just put it under water and didn't really wash his hands. And then he's like, "Let me see your child." And I was like, okay, here you go. You know, like it just made me cringe. I was not impressed, right? So I haven't found the right person, and nothing against him. I'm sure he's a wonderful, wonderful doctor. First impressions are very important for me. So it just didn't stand above the rest. So I don't know if I necessarily feel comfortable with someone who isn't healthy themselves to take care and maintain the health of my child.
I think that that's an important observation, and I think it's really true across many healthcare workers in the mainstream medicine. Many doctors and nurses are overweight. They're not healthy. They don't exude health. I mean, I'm not saying like I'm gorgeous, but I mean, I at least look like I follow what I practice, what I preach, right? I mean, somebody's not going to come to me and go, "Oh my gosh, you know, she's giving me advice, but she looks like she's so unhealthy." Same thing with you guys. I mean, you want someone to be advising you on your health who is exuding that themselves. And I think when you have a doctor who is unhealthy, now sometimes you can know a lot and not practice it yourself. You can know what's good and not do it. So we all know that. But I think it's really important to say, yeah, I mean, if you have these kinds of conditions, so for example, as you described this person with his skin stuff. So what if my child ends up with eczema, but your child won't, because your child's immune system is balanced properly. But if you had a child with eczema and you're going to go, you're probably going to get a prescription for a steroid cream, and there's not going to be much else.
Right. And you know, what's interesting about eczema that I have learned through my experience, and I might have mentioned this before, is eczema is generally an emotional response. It's very, very common in the first child after the second sibling is born. I've seen it in many practices. I actually took care of a young boy in Colorado who his dad was a chiropractor and was, you know, adjusting his kids, and the older one started like lashing out, started having like really bad behavioral problems, and then the skin issue on top of that. So he's good friends with my former boss and brought his son to him. Now I saw the son post everything. He didn't have any rashes. He still had the behavioral concerns, but he was pretty well behaved in the room. He would lash out every now and again. But I never saw him with the skin conditions, but I heard the stories. And now the gentleman that the chiropractor dad is now learning this technique because he was realizing that the conventional chiropractic was not actually addressing the emotional tension that was in his son's spine because of usually from the, like, I don't know if it's jealousy or whatever it is from the first child.
Common. Common.
And so, and I had another friend in Georgia say the same thing when his first son, when he had his second son, the first son started to like have skin eczema issues. So we like looked into it and learned that it's very emotional based. And when you can address the emotional tension, and it's funny when we talk about emotion with, especially with kids, like River just loves to scream. He just loves to do it because he's discovering his voice, and he's like, ah! I did mute him during the screaming just so you can talk. But it's funny. And we're always like, through the first like year or two of life, we're like, say this, like banana or mama or dada or whatever. And we're getting them to try and talk. And then they're just like, ah, getting that emotion, learning their voice, learning how to say things. And then the joke is for the next 18 years, you're like, sit down and shut up. Right. And so, yeah. Right. So when a child is just expressing emotion and is just like, ah, and we want to calm them down and like, shh, it's okay, just hush, 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 you're actually suppressing that emotion. And they just want to express it. That's all it is. And I know temper tantrums are no fun whatsoever. And it's kind of what they have to do to really establish who they are and to understand who they are and what they're capable of.
What I think is when I'm listening to people, like we're out at the lake in the summer and you're hearing around the lake, you're hearing kids playing, right? They're screaming at each other. This one's bossing the other one around, and they're doing it with this wild abandon, which is really fun to listen to because of the lack of, because of the inhibition. Right. No, the lack of inhibition.
Right.
Because they're not thinking this isn't proper. They're not thinking, is it right for me to be bossing my siblings or my friends around, that I took charge and I said, do this, and I'm screaming or whatever, but you're outside and you're doing it. And I think there's such a joy, and it doesn't have to be, they're all having fun. They can be angry with one another. They can be doing whatever, but I always reflect on the innocence of just out there saying it, just out there doing it, saying it. And, eventually, you find out, well, I'm bossing my friends around all the time. They don't really like me that much. And you kind of get that way, but it's very different than just saying, oh, don't raise your voice.
Right.
And just to be able to do that, just to be able to, I don't know, just to be able to scream and not feel like there's anything wrong with that, because that just came natural. Right. Which is where River is right now. That just comes natural. And it feels good. It just feels good to do it. Yeah.
I know. I just look over like, oh, I just assume he's telling me about his dreams in the morning when he does that. And I was like, wow, that's fascinating, Right. And it's that emotional, just the release. And Matt is really good at explaining the development of children. He's done a lot of work with young children and teenagers in his previous professions. And when we suppress what, or we program ourselves to suppress our emotions, we lock it in, and then it starts to create tension in the system, and it could show up in many different forms later in life. And it may not be until you're 20, it may not be until you're 50, it may not be until you're 80 that it actually shows up. But I'll say that we are now developing the understanding of feeling a spine when there's been like, you can feel someone's spine and be like, okay, so what happened when you were 17? And people are like, I don't know. And then they'll think about it and they're like, oh my gosh, that's when my parents got divorced, and that tension that they never really realized was being held was due to that. And then acknowledging that tension. And then as we grow and we suppress our emotions, because unfortunately society teaches us to do so, you don't want to make sound because it's wrong. You don't want to speak out of term because it's wrong. It's our programming. And I don't want to say the programming is wrong. I just want to say that there could definitely be some amendments to it that might help people feel like they have the right to say something. And I read an article about, in the Shopper News actually, about talking with your child, especially your daughters, about menstruation. And children who are aware of their bodies and who are, know about their bodies, like naming of body parts, this is my arm, this is my head, this is, my reproductive area, like knowing the words vagina and penis, like, and not demonizing it and making it safe, actually have less likely of a chance to be violated later in life, because they're aware and they know that it's wrong because they can speak up for themselves. And so I think there's the stigma about teaching a child about, sexuality and everything, and that it's wrong. And it's not, it's part of life, so you have to start young, and everything is starting young. I'm not saying like teach your 2-year-old, this.
Well, I have
but
to
in
say,
general,
though,
everything.
with my daughter, I mean, from the time she was, I don't know, she'd be in the bathroom if I was changing a tampon or doing whatever. She just understood that that was very normal.
Mhm.
We put up little potty thing in the thing, and she at 16 months toilet trained herself, bowels. So I was just like, I just took her diaper off and that was it. She never ever wet her pants, that kind of thing. And then she was 3 years old when she came into the bathroom, and I was miscarrying, and I caught my little embryo and I showed it to her and we talked about it. I'm not trying to like get, sympathy here. I'm just saying we were always just very frank about stuff. And I think that that's really healthy. It's like, there's nothing weird about this. Like, I'm not going to tell you that I have a period until you're 13 and you're about to get your period. No, women get periods, and she knew that from the get-go. She just always saw that. So I think that that's important. And I also think there's a difference between, I think it's just very nice. And it's also very reassuring. And what do I want to say? It's a nice boundary for children to learn manners. So this is not the proper time to do this. This isn't the proper time to say that. This is how we are polite with people. But when we're home with our families, we talk about everything openly. So you don't need to feel like when you're, at Thanksgiving dinner in a big group, or you're out to dinner, or you're something like that, we don't want, our kids not to understand that that's not the appropriate time to scream. And I'm not talking about River, I'm talking about older kids. It's not the appropriate time to do certain things. And I think that these boundaries that we have, that we call manners, are also a nice protection. But then we need to have, in our homes and in our close relationships, we need to have people that we can talk to about all of these things and where we can express things. I also wanted to go back to one more thing when you were talking about eczema. And I'm going to say, I agree with you about the emotions bringing that out, but I will say a child who's well nourished will not manifest that in response.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah.
Because it's a combination of everything. But if you are, again, short up, you're not going to break down. Your physical things aren't going to just kind of break apart at some instigation of being upset and emotional things. Right.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that, when it comes to childcare, I guess I don't know where I'm going or where I'm going to be, like if I'm having another child or not. I haven't really made that decision yet. I'm only 8 months postpartum, so right now, no. But perhaps I just don't know yet. But involving, River in the second child, if that is meant to be like part of the process. And another thing with even teaching boys about the female, insecurities, because it's weird enough to have a period when you're 13 or 14 or however old, 12, even 11 these days. That's already a very weird thing anyway for a young girl, like, and kids can tease each other about it. So I've been reading, like, just things come to my awareness, and I'm like, gosh, that's such a good thought. Like teaching River, like not hiding my, menstruation again, and like letting him see that mama has a period. What is that? Teaching him that is part of it. And this is what happens with girls, and have him respect it too, so that he's not like, I don't want him to be, oh my gosh, sees a girl who's had a period. I want him to to grow up and respect that rather than make fun of it. You know,
Yeah.
does that make sense? I don't know if boys are really taught. I can't remember. That was 6th grade, whatever it was. I don't know if boys are really taught.
Easy for you to just live your life. I will tell you this. You know, my parents never, like my father, I saw him naked all the time when I was a kid. He didn't like put a towel around his waist. I watched him shave and he was naked. And, you know, I mean, that was just natural. So it was not like, oh gosh, I don't know what a man's junk looks like. You know, I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
in your families, you know, you just be natural and just live naturally, and nothing is weird. Everything is all normal. I mean, and yeah, so.
I agree with that. And I remember taking showers with my mother when I grew up, like my sister and I would take showers with my mom. I don't recall my father, seeing my father. But I know we were open. I think to a point, like by a certain age, it's like, okay, maybe we don't need, I don't know. My neighbor is very different. She's like, yeah, we walked around naked all the time with our daughter. And some people thought it was abuse. And I was like, it's a body. We are beautiful, beautiful beings, and we should love and respect it like each other.
Yeah.
So, and that's coming back to like postpartum care for women. Like my experience postpartum with the Monadnock Birth Center Monadnock Birth Center that I went to, their postpartum care was phenomenal. Like that's what sold me on actually going to them, because I hear the stories like, what did you do for postpartum care? And everybody's like, what do you mean? I just took care of my child. Well, these women really respect a woman's body and understand what they just went through. And they came to our house the first 4 days after delivery, and I got a nutritious meal every time. I think we should have one of them on one of the midlives on our call.
I had a husband who cooked for me constantly.
Yeah, well, Matt does too, thank goodness.
Yeah.
He was definitely the gift there as well. But these women came in, I got like a tea bath. I got one of those, what are they called? Is it noni? It's just you put a steaming pot underneath and you sit above the steaming pot, and it really helps, like the tea and all the herbs and everything helps.
Yeah.
Helps.
It's kind of like a sitz bath, but not. I know what you're talking about.
Not in a tub, but just like above the pot.
Yeah.
Yep. And that was wonderful. I did a belly wrap to help with like the organs to go back into place naturally. They did that. And then they also checked River. You know, they would come and they would check River, and then, but the focus was the mom. And they, made sure that they made a tomato soup that was just to die for. It's all gluten-free, dairy-free, just herbs and spices and just wholesome. Oh my gosh, it was so good. And I think that's something that women tend to get just kind of pushed aside, because life is all about the baby and not so much about them anymore. And that's what I really appreciated about these women who cared for me. And then at our last visit, we got a milk, and I believe it was a milk and honey bath. And so they drew a tub for us, and even Matt got in. It was River, Matt, and I, and we all got into this bath, and there was like flowers, like palm flowers in it. And it was beautiful. And then I received a chakra wrap afterwards this is, what was the question?
What practice?
This is the Monadnock Birth Center down in Swansea, the midwives in Swansea. Yeah, they set up a bed with different colored fabrics for the chakras, for each of the chakras, or I should say crown. And then she set an intention as she wrapped me. This is Rebecca Pricewood, Wood Price, I can never remember that. And she wrapped like the crown, and then she wrapped the third eye, she wrapped the throat, the heart, and she had an intention for each chakra and a gift. And then as she unwrapped it, it's like you're coming out of a cocoon and you're becoming, like, you come into motherhood fully. And everything is balanced. I really did feel like a butterfly. Like I was like, oh my gosh, this is very weird. And then all of a sudden I was just like, I felt okay with, motherhood. The transition into motherhood is very challenging, and I'm still acclimating to it. And, because my life is not all about me anymore or Matt, it's about River. And so it really did help you understand that this is a transition like any other transition, to become into a new person. And the care, even postpartum, like the nutrients that you take. And I'll be honest, I have not been the best with my supplementation. I even have a note on my refrigerator say, take your supplements, and I still don't do it all the time. So I am not the perfect.
I have a note on mine saying, go get your entrainment, and I still don't do that, so.
So we're all human. It's okay. And we're all busy.
What we can do.
We totally get it. But the nutrients postpartum is really important for healing, I believe. And I think a lot of self-care postpartum is very important. I'm getting massages regularly from the massage therapists that are in our office. Obviously, I'm on the table every week. And when I make the time after, I still eat very late because I put River down and then make dinner. We do eat very late, and the food, we still buy like nutrient dense food. Matt always make sure we have greens in the house. He's starting to buy or has been buying beef so that I have more of the iron to help, even though I am taking an iron supplement when I take the iron supplement. I'm human. I get it. I'm not perfect. And so
we all get it.
We all
doing
understand.
Better than most, even though we miss here and there, we're doing better than most.
Yeah. So it's very important to know the nutrients. Like, are you, I guess, the book that you gave, the Adele Davis is part of like the nutrients, like what to feed your children and what to feed yourself postpartum to make sure, because I'm constantly hungry. I don't know about you, but like postpartum, I am like, I could eat 10 meals a day.
You have to. I mean, Dale would make me like 3 scrambled eggs, dripping in butter. I mean, because I was breastfeeding. I breastfed my daughter until she was over 3. Okay, so but I gave birth, and 2 weeks later, I was singing with the Nashville Choral Society, and I was in size 9 pants. I mean, it wasn't like, you know what I'm saying? It's not like you have these energy needs when you are nursing, and you have to come up with that. And so I have to say, I don't recall myself any postpartum problem. I didn't have any postpartum blues. I'm going to talk about that in a second, because some people do, and there are really good reasons for it. And it can be very, very, very harsh. But I did not. But also, I was not like you are right now, Dr. Tisa. I was a stay-at-home mom. That was all I had to do. That was all I had to think of. I wasn't having to figure out when I'm going back to work and I'm going to juggle this and I'm going to juggle that. I had none of that. So I didn't have any of that. But there are some really key things that happen to people that can really put them into a tailspin postpartum. And it doesn't happen to everybody, but here's the deal. Progesterone is a hormone that makes you feel really good. You are making 400 milligrams a day from your placenta in the 2nd and 3rd trimesters. Compare that to when you're high progesterone in the luteal phase of your normal cycle, which is 12 to 20 milligrams, right? So that's why people, except for getting big and feeling uncomfortable with those kinds of things, but mentally usually feel pretty good during the 2nd and 3rd trimesters. So progesterone, once you deliver, placenta's gone, and progesterone has to come down to 0 for your milk to come in. And this can put people into a horrible postpartum depression. So what I do with people like that is get your milk established for a few weeks to make sure your milk is in, and then we start using progesterone cream to get that progesterone back in. Another thing is copper. We find that copper being high in people postpartum can be a real problem with the depression. So we make sure we're using a supplement, like a multivitamin supplement that has no copper in it. Make sure you have extra zinc, which combats extra copper. So there are things that happen, and true exacerbated postpartum depression is probably one of the most brittle forms of depression. And that often needs medical attention because not many people, I don't think there's that many that go that way, but they do. And hormonal disruptions, a lot of other things that can happen around delivery, and pregnancy is thyroid disruption. So check your, make sure you get your thyroid. If your things are off, make sure you get your thyroid numbers checked out, because that's a weird time. With some people who've gone hypothyroid or hyperthyroid, it has happened during a pregnancy. So that's an important thing to pay attention to as well.
Yeah, I definitely have little bouts of postpartum depression. I think it was just because I'm very social and I was home by myself all the time. And when I was able to come back to the office, that definitely helped. I mean, still, parenthood is not the easiest thing ever. It's very gratifying for sure, but it's not easy. And I've recently restarted my period, and man, that has been a trip. Like, I just remember last week being like, why am I so mad? I don't remember having PMS this bad ever. And I think it's just the fluctuation of my hormones trying to balance out. And I just frustrated for no reason, and I told Matt, I was like, I don't know why I'm mad, but I'm really upset right now. And I have no idea why. And then of course, this is like my second cycle back since giving birth, and oh geez, it's
I would really recommend, talk to me personally about 5-HTP to just
the serotonin.
I have a long history with that. I can tell you about that very personally.
Well, it's very real, like, to come back. And honestly, I haven't asked my friends about like their experience, with their cycles coming back online. And I mean, it's not fully regular, but it's pretty darn close. And so I do understand that that's part of it, and also being hungry, and then milk production. I don't know how many women have issues with milk production, but as soon as I came back to work, my milk production like died. And I'm working on trying to get it back, which is very odd. I would imagine it would just like come back, and I'm still working on it. So I don't know if you have any advice on that. I'm taking the calcium, magnesium supplements. I drink mother's milk. I make lactation cookies, and they're all helping. I'm pumping more. I'm definitely like pumping more, and that's helping, but it's not like it was when I first started, like not even close.
But I mean, he's probably not nursing as frequently either.
Not as frequently, that's for sure. We did go about 3 weeks or so. I mean, he's often on sleeping through the night. But he is hungry. I mean, this kid is so hungry. I could feed him 7 ounces of milk and he still wants more. I'm like, okay. So I know he is hungry. So I'm like nursing him and pumping at the same time to like to let my body know that I need to make more. But it's not as plentiful as it was. And I'll tell you, that is definitely frustrating.
So I just think that system works pretty well on supply and demand. Now he's 8 months.
Almost, yeah.
So he's eating food.
Yeah, he's eating solids.
Okay. I don't know.
Yeah, it's an interesting mystery. We're playing with it, and trying to make sure that it does come back online. It's not that I'm completely empty. It's just I wasn't as full as I was when I first started, and I noticed it decreased as I went back to work. So it's kind of a mystery on my end, getting my body back.
But it's not like he's not getting what he wants when he nurses. He's getting.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I just have to give him more because it's like not enough. I don't know if that makes any sense. Yeah.
Well, as you well know, the nursing just keeps the milk production up. That's right. What happens.
Yeah, so, that's what we do. Yeah. He's a hungry hippo, as we call it all the time. You look at him, he's nothing but cheeks.
He could probably just use more solid food at this point. Yeah. Just kind of making that transition. Not to say that you're going to stop nursing, anytime soon, but it's the lesser part of his food.
His food, yeah.
instead of his part. Yeah.
Yeah, we just tried, like, he loves pears, he loves bananas, he loves apples. We tried the cooked carrots, didn't really work. Squash, he loves delicata, he loves butternut, like
Gourmet. He's a gourmet.
for right now. But man, we love them. So I actually, the stigma, I made I steamed cooked carrots for him, and the whole time I'm like, ugh, I don't like cooked carrots. Like, I love raw carrots, not cooked carrots. And when I fed it to him, like, I had it in my head that this is disgusting. And I felt really bad that I was feeding it to him. And he, of course, like, picked up on it, was like, and just spit it all out.
Yeah, I don't think I like that either.
I was like, I totally get it. So I'm trying little packets of foods and like mixing foods, because I make like all the applesauce, I make the squashes, I make most of the things. Pears, I steam that for him. I have to work on getting a little bit more veggies so he can get the iron into his diet, but I'm dreading chicken livers. I hear that's very good for him, and I'm dreading sardines. I think I might have to leave that to Matt.
My first solid food for my daughter was homemade liver pate. I just made it. I put it into jars. She loved it. It is so rich. And I think he needs probably more, not veggies and fruits, but more protein, more umps.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think that will stick with him better. But I'm telling you, I used, it was the Fanny Farmer's cookbook. And it was her chicken liver pate. And there was garlic in there. It was delicious. But I mean, she loved it.
Yeah.
But he probably just needs more substance. I mean, because nobody can be sustained on fruits and vegetables. So I would say maybe switching that. But
yeah, I got to get the eggs. I tried eggs, but he was gagging on it, so that freaked me out. So I stopped. I was like, okay, I'm by myself. No, I don't want to do this. I know I'm CPR certified, but no, thank you. I don't want to have to do that on my own kid.
I know, exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, so we're just playing around with it, and still making sure that he's getting plenty of milk, and whatnot. But I all in all, I think the bottom line is understanding that, what we do as women, and to help support any woman that is planning to become pregnant, to take care of herself and nourish herself, mind, body, spirit, heart, everything, preconception, conception, and then afterwards, because nutrition plays a huge role in it. Your mental game plays a huge role in it, through the whole entire process. I mean, even postpartum, you have to, and the support that you need. There are people out there that will support you. Becky, again, I can't thank you enough for all the support and guidance that you gave me during pregnancy. Dr. Jean as well, way before, like a year before, helping me clean up my diet. And then the chiropractic care that I receive, I think, helped tremendously with time and like intensity and time wise. Like, my pregnancy was very brief, if you will. It was intense. I think it's intense no matter what you do, but it wasn't as, I don't know, I would imagine it could be so much worse, and I don't think that's necessary for most people. So if whoever's listening today and catches this, if you know people who are pregnant or thinking about being pregnant, please come, see both of us, all of us. Even Allison, like, acupuncture works wonders with back pain, back labor, things like that. She's a wealth of knowledge in that world of balancing the chi and helping the body really do what it's supposed to do naturally. And I think us as a team, this whole proactive group is such a good team for people, and resources that people may not necessarily have or know about. So please, we welcome anybody to just at least give us a call. Consultations are always free. If it's not the right fit, it's okay. We just want to make sure that women definitely get what they need and the support that they need, with someone who's willing to listen to them.
Yeah, I will say the choices you make as early on as possible will make the rest of the trip so much easier. So you just prevent a lot of things, even going back to what you said about the eczema. And I'm thinking also, if a child is really well nourished, they should be better able to deal with the emotional things that happen, like when that second sibling is born. So it all comes down to the basics. Get those roots nourished, get, the spinal things, the nutritional things, get all of that, the nervous system, all of that going and nourish that. And then you can just avoid so many problems down the road. Oh, my child has allergies. My child has this. My child has that. And really just make your life so much more pleasant and natural, and the way it's supposed to be from the beginning, the way it was supposed to be.
Yeah. The way it was intended in the first place, right?
Right. Yeah. So I'm going to see you tonight. I'm not going to give anybody an idea where, but that's going to be fun. And and have a wonderful weekend, everyone. Thanks for tuning in, and we will be back. I believe it's in 2 weeks. Let me look. We say the 1st and 3rd.
November 19th.
November 19th. Yep. Okay.
All right. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you soon.
Okay. Thanks, Tisa.
Thanks, Becky. Bye.
Bye.